Hello, this is week 4, and this week we're going to jump into lesson planning. To me, that's just the best part of this class is writing lesson plans, because I love to jump into new material and see the children's reaction to all the wonderful things you're going to be teaching. Okay, lesson planning 1. This week we're just going to take a little steps into lesson planning. We're going to talk about topic selection, and then we're going to talk about the major objective and the 2 minor objectives. That's all we're going to cover. Next week, we'll cover more pieces of the lesson plan, and eventually we'll have the whole thing covered. But first things first, let's start off with the topic. Okay, so at this point, most of you should have been placed in a 4-year-old classroom. If you have not, and some of you may still be waiting on a placement, you will be placed soon, I'm sure. If you have any concerns about this, you can always check with Rhea Fears, who is the director of the intern program. So make sure you check with her if you're worried about it. You need to talk to your cooperating teacher about what their plans are for the next couple of weeks. You're going to be teaching these lessons sometime in the middle to the end of February, and also probably into March. Hopefully you'll be all done with it by spring break. So ask what thematic units your faculty is going to be planning for that time period. Is there anything specific they would like you to think about? So that's the first step, is to find out what they think you should be teaching. Because after all, you're a guest in their classroom, so you really have to check with them. Okay. A lot of times they'll say, oh, whatever you want to teach about is just fine. In that case, you'll have to come up with an idea on your own. Okay. So as you're thinking about topics, you're going to think about developmentally appropriate topics for 4-year-olds. It's got to be familiar to most 4-year-olds. So think about their limited life experiences and the limited amount of places 4-year-olds have been for the most part. Is it relevant to 4-year-olds in Tulsa, Oklahoma? Lessons on ice fishing in Michigan probably won't have any relevance. Lessons on European castles, not so much. We don't have any here in Tulsa. You've got to pick familiar things so that you can build on their prior knowledge in order to create new knowledge. And then, is it of interest to most of the 4-year-olds in the classroom? And no, you're never going to interest every single child, but you've got to hit the majority with interest. So think about what could be fun and interesting. And can you bring some knowledge into it? First of all, I want you to think about what we talked about last week with the banana. Think about the difference between showing someone a picture of something and actually experiencing something. When you eat a banana, you can feel it, touch it, smell it, taste it. You have a different experience than, oh, I'm looking in a book, it's a banana. Can't really tell much, but there you go. So think real experience, just like eating the banana. Whatever you decide on, you're going to have to bring something into the classroom. The real object, so that children have a real experience. Ask yourself, with whatever you pick, is there something for the children to hear, see, taste, touch, or smell? You're not going to hit all of them every time, but try to hit as many of those senses as you can, because that's how children make sense of what they're learning when they're 4 years old. And then comes the part where, are you boring them to tears? And those are the lessons that that are like, you have to teach the letter P. Well, gee, doing a million worksheets on the letter P is mind-numbing and boring. Who wants to come to school again just so they can do the letter Q? So if the teacher says to you, I need you to do a lesson on the letter P, you go, oh, okay, I'll teach the letter P. But in the back of your brain, you're going to be thinking, okay, what can I really do this letter on that starts with the letter P? I can bring it into the classroom. It can be something hands-on. I can actually teach something. And then, oh, by the way, it starts with the letter P. You could bring in your pet goldfish. Pet absolutely starts with a P. You're teaching the letter P, but by goodness, you've got a goldfish that you could bring in. Once you bring something like that in, you've got their attention. No one's bored, everyone's interested. And you know when kids are interested, the behavior is a million times better in the classroom. You don't have to tell children, sit down, be quiet. They will sit down, be quiet, so they can hear you talk about what you brought in. Okay. And then the last bullet down here on this page, can you embed the OAS objectives? No matter what you teach, you're going to have a major objective and 2 minor objectives from the Oklahoma Academic Standards. And even for 4-year-olds, there are numerous ones. We're going to look at them in just a little bit, but there are so many. So you don't have time to waste just teaching, fun lessons. You need to teach those objectives. You always have to be able to document what objectives you're addressing. Okay. So generating topics. If you were in my class, I'd have you generate some. Since you're not, I want you to sit back and think about some topics that you might address in your classroom. Think about all the upcoming events. Valentine's is not a topic. I'm just going to put it out to you just like that. And neither is St. Patrick's. Those are fun things just to do on the side when you're in school, but they're not thematic units and they're not lesson topics. But on the other hand, you can tie in things that happen during February. February is always when we do American signs and symbols, and we teach about presidents, and Dental Health Week, I think, is the end of January. You can do community helpers. If you do community helpers, though, pick one helper, because you don't have time to teach every community helper in the 15-20 minutes you get for your lesson. So you're going to pick one community helper. Okay. So you're going to use the Oklahoma Academic Standards, obviously, on which to base your lessons. I'm not going to cover this right now because I will cover this when we go over the learning module. So you're going to pick one major objective, and you're going to have to rewrite it, because most of the learning objectives, the way they're written in the standards, they're just poor. They're not written in such a way that you could assess them. Your major objective has got to be pre-assessed and post-assessed. After all, you want to know, did they learn anything? You're going to be teaching whatever your major objective is during guided practice. And then the students will practice it in a center. That's their independent practice. And you're going to select 2 minor objectives. And they need to be practiced during the centers. There's so many things that children have to work on that you don't have to assess every last objective. So that's what these minors are. And you will include 2 of those. Now, there are some verbs that are just terrible for assessing objectives. Don't use these. Students will have knowledge of How are we going to figure out if they have knowledge of? Students will enjoy? No. Students will become acquainted with? Well, I don't know if they're shaking hands with it or not. So don't talk to me about being acquainted with. Don't use any of those. Come down here. These are good measurable objectives. Can they arrange the boxes from largest to smallest? Can they classify living or non-living things? Can they construct a tower of 10 blocks? Can they count to 10? Can they create an AB pattern? Can they compare and contrast living and non-living? Can they define whatever means? My favorite one out of these, though, I'm going to tell you straight out, is identify. Can they identify what they know about? That is my favorite one. And again, this is for when you're in my classroom. I would have you group plan, just ignore that. And chapter 9, you're going to read on your own, and you're going to take the quiz that goes along with that. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to get out of this, and let's just stop sharing for a minute. And then I want to reshare a different piece of this. I want to make sure that we're in the learning modules and we can all see what's happening with these items in the learning module. Okay, this is learning module week 4. You have a lot of resources in that learning module. The first thing you've got is this PowerPoint that we just went over. And then you have 2 different Oklahoma standards. Okay, this is the official one. If you click here, it will take you to the State of Oklahoma page with all the learning standards for pre-K through grade 12, which is fine. If you want to go there and pull out the pre-K standards yourself, go for it. However, I did the easy version because I like easy. And I pulled off the ones that I thought you could use the most. As you can see, the pre-K language arts standards are divided into listening and speaking, reading and writing foundations, reading and writing process, critical reading and writing, writing, vocabulary, language, research, multimodal literacies, and independent reading and writing. That's a lot. That's just the language arts for 4-year-olds. So, okay, you have lots to pick from. These are the math standards for pre-K, and these are the science standards, and these are the social studies standards. Now, there are lots of other standards. There's PE and music and art and so on and so forth. However, these are the ones, these sets of standards are the ones I would like you to use for writing your lessons. And as you write your lessons, I want you to make sure that you have one language arts standard. You can pick which one you want. One math standard. Pick whichever one you want. And then you can have either a science or a social studies for your third, because you need one main major and 2 minors. Any questions about this, please let me know. So then let's take a look at how some of these are written, okay? Like take, for instance, this one right here. Students will begin to understand that print carries a message by recognizing labels, signs, and other print in the environment. Really? How do you assess whether Johnny is beginning to understand? He may be in the middle of his understanding. He might be at the ending of his understanding. Who knows? Okay, that begin to understand is not something you can assess. I'm trying to get that across. Okay. So what you're going to do is you're going to rewrite that in language that you can assess, whether it's the major or the minor. And you're going to use my favorite word, identify. Students will identify that print carries a message by recognizing labels, signs, and other print in the environment. Because it's important that they recognize environmental print. That's the beginning of reading. When you say students can identify environmental print, you can get a checklist and you can go, oh, Johnny can do it. Chuck, chuck, chuck. Susie here can't. Joshua knows 2 signs out of 4. You know, Lucy knows all 4, whatever it is. They can either identify or they can't identify. Any questions about rewriting these so that you can actually assess them? Please let me know and we will go over it, because it's got to be really clear whether or not the student has learned it or not. Okay, so that's the easy version. Like I said, you can go to the hard version if you want to. Totally up to you. Okay, so the next thing I want you to look at is the Boxes lesson plan. Boxes lesson plan is one I wrote, and this is how it's set up. Now, you will notice this is not the lesson plan that's the official NSU College of Ed lesson plan. I know. And so does everyone else. And they know that we use this lesson plan. When it's okay with your pre-2 instructor, they understand we have their permission because ours is more detailed. If you look down, we have all the information they have in theirs. However, we have centers set up in ours that they don't have because we're early childhood. So it's totally okay. You will use this lesson plan for your 3 lessons. You will write all 3 in your 4513 class in this class. These are the lessons that you teach when you go out into your clinical and teach lessons. So for your lesson plan 1, and this is just an example, okay? You can't use my stuff, but I like people to know what's expected. I'm doing a lesson on boxes. And really, I'm doing a lesson on sorting. And major objective, students will sort boxes by 1 or more attributes. And I have 2 minor objectives. Students will write a note to go with a gift. Writing is what 4-year-olds do. It's a mixture of writing and drawing called writing. You know, they'll have a picture and then a letter somewhere in the middle of the picture. That's called writing. And for my second minor objective, students will count and match groups of objects to a number. So I actually have 2 math objectives and 1 language arts, and that's totally fine. As long as you have math and language arts in there, you're good. And we're going to talk about the pre and post assessment next week. So I just want you to see that it exists, but we're not going to cover it in any major way. And then notice down here, I've got my Oklahoma academic standards. And I basically have just cut and pasted them from the standard sheet. Down here, this is a cut and paste job right in this section, cut and paste. Up here, not so much, because up here, I've written it in ways that can be easily assessed. And then there are adaptations, because in every class, you're going to need some adaptations. We'll come up here and got your name, the date. It'll be 4-year-olds. You're going to have 15 to 20 minutes for the lesson. Number of children in your class. And special needs. Special needs, you know, you may have all children who are 100% healthy and have no special needs and everyone speaks English, and that's great. If that happens, you are going to pretend that you have some special needs because you need practice in this. You're going to plan for English language learners, ELL, that's your first one. And your second special need is ASD, the autism spectrum disorder, because chances are you are going to have a student in your class who is on the spectrum or being evaluated for such. And in the future, you're going to have many children who are both English language learners and on the spectrum, and other children on the spectrum. So you'll need to be prepared for that. So if you do not have any special needs in your class, use ASD and ELL. Okay. And so I've made my adaptations. Now, if you already have a student in your class who needs adaptations, please make those, use that. That's fine. But remember, you need two different adaptations, for two different kinds of needs. Okay, then I have my introduction. We're going to go over that on a different day. There's my guided practice. That's where I do all my teaching. I've got my centers. You only need 4. I kind of went overboard. And then there's the closure. So we're talking about all the different pieces at different days. Today, all we're covering is the major objective and the 2 minor objectives. So like I said, if you have any questions about this, please let me know. The next thing that you have in here, and I'll go ahead and let you click on this. It won't come up on the Zoom if I do it now, is the lesson plan blank. And that's the same lesson plan that you just looked at with the boxes, but it's in Microsoft Word. So you can just easily download it to your own computer. I hate reinventing the wheel, so all you have to do is just fill it in. So now I'm going to go back to the announcement page. And this is basically what we've talked about here. We've talked about the objectives, the standards, topic selection. You're going to go ahead and click here to sign up for a Zoom appointment for February 20th and February 28th. Lesson plan 1 will be February 20th approval, and February 28th will be lesson plan 2 approval. So make sure that by February 20th, you've got your lesson plan 1 sitting in your Google Docs, and go ahead and put me in as a co-editor so that I can make comments and, work with you as you're making this a really great lesson plan. There are always revisions. Don't take it personally. Everyone's just learning how to do this. So that's what I'm here to do, is help you do it. But you need to click there to sign up for your lesson plan approval time. And the earlier you can get that in, the better, but please do not do it until after lesson plan 3 has been covered. So 3 weeks, in about 3 weeks, you'll really start writing that first one. I want you to have all the instruction before you get into this writing business. Down here, just a little reminder, on February 1st is the first SOEA meeting for the semester. This is a nice organization to join because it's really inexpensive to be a member, and they have their meetings on Zoom. So it's really a great way to, if you don't have an organization that you belong to, because you need to for your involvement in early childhood field checklist. So it's a great one to join. If you need information about joining, get in touch with Dr. Sargent or Dr. Moreland, because they're the ones in charge of it. And this thing doesn't work, but here's the Zoom link to the meeting right there. And you can just easily get in there and be part of the meeting. If you have any questions about this, anything I've talked about your topics or your standards, your major objective or your minor objective, please let me know. I'm so happy to visit with students. We'll set up a Zoom appointment and we'll just go over it. Have a wonderful week. Bye.